So it's 6 o'clock, people. So we're on, and I saw that there were already a few people waving to us and welcome. Let's see if I can do a little. There's a chat box, but in the first part of the webinar we will not use it so much. But can somebody type something or show in a way that you're there? I saw Iris was there. Maybe just say something. Hi, hello. Yes, Iris is there. She says something. Very good. Okay, thank you for that. So yeah, welcome. This we are here at in Amsterdam with Nitya Mohan from Swasta Yoga, and we're very happy that you're here too. From many different countries, many people getting together online, and Nitya is here in Amsterdam to teach our workshops and programs on sound and yoga for women. And we are adding a conversation that we want to share online with the whole world as well. So thank you so much for being here, Nitya.
Thank you for having me, Anneke, and organizing it.
Welcome. It's my pleasure. So the webinar will be like this. We will have a conversation for about 45 minutes, and at the end, people will have like 10 to 15 minutes to have a Q&A. So we can ask their questions. Let's start. So my name is Anneke Sips. I'm the founder of Network Yoga Therapy, and I'm very honored to have here Nitya Mohan from Swasta Yoga. And Nitya, welcome. Okay. Is it, can you share a little bit about who you are, where you're from?
Sure. For maybe most of you already were there, maybe know my parents, who are A.G. Mohan and Indra Mohan, and Ganesh as well. Ganesh Mohan, who does this was the yoga therapy here as well. And Ganesh and myself grew up in India, and my introduction to yoga as well as music, Sanskrit, everything came really early. I think I was truly blessed in a way. And because my father met Krishnamacharya when I was around 1 year old, so he started teaching me chanting in the Yoga Sutras, because that was the traditional way of teaching with you, like how you would probably teach Mila now, to teach as early as you can, because when we're children, we learn really quickly. And I also learned music from my grandmother, my mother's mother, and later on went on to do my degree in music. So pretty much what I really love teaching and what I have been doing now in Amsterdam is a combination of these areas of work, whether it's classical yoga, Yoga Sutras, the area of music, which is also very, very ancient. Indian classical music has a lot of roots that are very, very old texts in Sanskrit, as well as texts on phonetics and sound. So it fascinates me to find the links between all of this, honestly, because I find that the links between mantras, whether it is mentioned in the Yoga Sutras, whether it is the scales and the emotions, whether it is the Sanskrit phonetics and sound and expression, and how it links to our body and mind, and with modern science, how it validates it. So I think I find it extremely fascinating myself to study that. And that's why I love sharing it.
Beautiful. Yeah. So, and you said you started to practice and learn this from a young age?
I think maybe 4 or 5 when my father started teaching me the Yoga Sutras. Because I think I have tapes of Ganesh and me blabbering the Yoga Sutras, not really chanting them. But yes, as I started learning it about 4 or 5, and yoga was pretty much, I think, a way of life, which is how my parents have lived it. It was not confined to a yoga mat. Of course, we didn't have a yoga mat in India in those days. So it was pretty much a part of everything we did every day. My father's favorite phrase would be, the sun doesn't sleep on Sunday, so you do the same thing. The sun still comes up on Sunday, so you do the same things every day. So these were samskaras that were given from very early. So I started teaching, I think when I was around 16 or 17, I started teaching kids. I used to teach kids first. And then later on, of course, now I run the yoga teacher training in Singapore. It's the yoga. And I have been always interested in combining these areas. So I think it's thanks to teaching here now that I'm really starting to do more and more in the area that I really enjoy.
But it's so interesting. You say that we didn't have a yoga mat. And now this is one of the main concerns of people in yoga, like what yoga mat do I need to get? But you see there is such a great development and changes happening from the time when you started in India, and now you're also able to travel and see what is happening in the whole world. There's like a yoga boom.
It has come, yes, it has come a really, really long way, because I think way back in the 70s, even in India, yoga was not very popular. It's very, very recent now, and thanks, I think, to the Prime Minister now who's promoting it very heavily. But even when my father was studying with Krishnamacharya, it was not really normal. It was not something everyone did, whether it was the chanting or the Yoga Sutras or yoga, but this was pretty much what we did at home. And my father used to say, oh, it doesn't matter what you do at school, it only matters what you do at home. That was always what he used to tell me, that this is what will help you in your life, because what you learn from the ancient wisdom is what you will keep with you throughout your life, to lead your life. So yes, I think yoga has come a really long way. It has exploded literally, I think, in the last decade or so, which is wonderful because we see so many people and so much interest. But as along with that, as well, with the commercialization comes a little bit of the need to go a little deeper now, I think, especially for serious yoga practitioners. That you learn to integrate a little more what you're doing on the mat, off the mat, into daily life, whether it's body, mind, breath, sound.
And because I think these days it's very much also an asana-based practice, yoga. And here we are, like what you're really specialized in is sound. And it's very interesting how you bring this link together. Because how do you see this? How do you see the connection between those?
See, traditionally, it was not separate. Nowadays, of course, there is a lot of confusion because sound is done separately. You do kirtan, you do singing separately. Traditionally, the link, the integration between asana, pranayama, meditation is a seamless one in one way, right? It is something that flows with the mantra, with the breath into your pranayama, and then from there into your meditative practice. So just as we use the breath so much in classical yoga, Krishnamacharya used to say yoga without asana, without the breath, is not yoga at all. Asana without breathing is not an asana at all. Similarly, like how we use the breath, the sound is a very, very powerful tool. It's very much a part of who I am, my voice. It's a part of, it finds expression every day in everything I say and everything I feel. So this is a link, I think, that is extremely useful to bring into the practice, whether it is the practice of asanas or pranayama or meditation, because this is something that can integrate it very well. So that they are not compartments of practice, that I do something with my body and then I do something with my mind. Whereas when we use sound in all the aspects, it sort of seamlessly integrates the breath, which is so vital in asanas. And the connection between breath and sound is so deep and so subtle that I think it's a wonderful starting point for anyone who wants to start exploring the use of sound in their practice.
Yeah, it's so interesting if you talk about the inner sounds, because this is for us normal. Like some voice inside of me is saying something, so it's nice to make that link. Maybe also like it's the way I'm learning also through you. It's like it's not only about the sound that you are expressing, but it's very much also the inner sound, right?
Yes. And ultimately, that's what yoga is about, isn't it? Because any vritti, when Patanjali says vritti nirodha, any vritti is a movement, and an inner movement is an inner sound. Right? All thoughts, whatever language it is in, is an inner vibration. And ultimately, in fact, they even go to the extent of saying that your mind, your world is your mind is sound, because your mind is your thoughts. So if you want to change your world, your inner world, change your inner sounds. And that is what a mantra is about.
But then sometimes also like there are maybe inner sounds that are disturbing this, because insecurity or things that your parents taught you, or things like this, like hidden.
See, the use of a mantra is manifold. So a mantra can be used, which is what we've been exploring, right? So there are many ways to use sound. Sound is extremely useful, especially in dealing with, for example, obsessive compulsive thinking or whatever involuntary movements are there in the mind, which we become aware of when a person is not mentally well. But my father often says the only line dividing it is that you think someone is mentally ill, but all of us have these thoughts all the time, uncontrollably, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
We become aware of it when I feel that, oh, it has crossed a point where I can't control my mind anymore. We call it stress, we call it, whether it's a depressive thought, whether it's a thought of anxiety, whether it's a thought of self-doubt, whether it is a thought of worry, that a mantra is an extremely powerful tool that helps, in a way, first of all, to break that cycle. A mantra can be used in so many ways, either to bring a pause, to bring a positive association with the emotions of positive psychology, how I can associate a sound with that, because the deepest samskaras are those that come through sound, isn't it? How do I learn as a child? When I learn language, I learn expression, and I express everything through sound. And finally, the deepest samskaras, the only way to actually change them is through introducing new sounds internally.
Exactly, and so these are practices like how so do you practice like sound by itself, or would you suggest to integrate it like a little practices throughout the day only with sound, or would you integrate it in your yoga practice, and why?
I would suggest that I would actually, like how we were doing it, do it in all ways. Bring sound into the asana practice, because sound is one of the best ways of connecting with your breath. Bring sound into the pranayama practice, because pranayama itself is defined with a mantra. So bringing a mantra into a pranayama practice is using that sound, that link between the breath and sound. And then bringing that intention of that mantra into the pranayama practice helps you very easily transition into the intention of your meditation that you set up for that day. Now, this is something that can be done seamlessly as a unit on the mat, but using a mantra also can be done several times during the day, which is usually how I teach it. So it's not just what you do on the mat, but yes, you also bring it into the mat, but it is also something that you do several times during the day to bring a pause, to step back, to reflect, to bring awareness. A mantra has so many ways of being used, sounds in one sense. I'm saying mantras very loosely. By mantras, I don't mean very long passages of chanting. I just mean words, even a single word, like what we've been working with, whether it is Shanti, Smarami, Namaha. Words that we bring associations with and create a new samskara with a new word. And that is something that becomes an inner strength, inner protection for me, which is the true intention of a mantra. Man is mind, ra to protect.
And do you need like somebody needs, like this is I think also a question that a lot of people have, like you need somebody to give you a mantra, or can you create your own mantra?
It's a very, very relevant question, but it's a big question. Because yes, there is traditionally also a lot of confusion over what mantra should I use. Should I have only one mantra? Should I have many mantras? Very simply, I think in the modern world, it is really important to understand what is the purpose of using a mantra. Like, what is the bhavam or the intention behind a mantra is what decides the result of it for me, finally. Now, how do I set that intention? I can get guidance from a teacher, but ultimately we must remember that I have to work with my own mind. The teacher cannot transform my mind. The teacher can be a guide. He can help me in setting that intention. He can help me understand. So yes, a teacher is useful, but I think it is equally important for the student to go a little deeper, to understand, to study a little more about what is my intention of using this mantra, and defining what is it that I want to feel. For example, when we kept stating sattva as a goal, that I want to feel calm, clear, content, peaceful. What are the sounds that will lead me to that state?
It's really, it becomes a practice by itself instead of like I think it's often very mystic, like it's a very mystical thing. It's like a secret mantra given by this very mystical person in the Himalayas, even better.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the market in yoga, right? Unfortunately, sometimes the more mystical it is, the more you can market it. But really, it's not about mystic. Just as it is in classical yoga, it is, if something is authentic, it has to be rational and logical. That's the way I've always learned it. It is not faith, it is not mysticism, it is not somebody gives you a secret syllable. No, just as with asana practice, we have fundamental principles: functional movement, alignment, stability, awareness, right? Similarly, with sound, there are fundamental principles, right? Why do I use a sound? How should I connect to that sound? How should I connect it with my breath? What is the intention I should give in my mind? Once I understand some of these fundamental principles, I think it is very easy for anyone actually to integrate and use a mantra. But just as there is so much confusion in asanas, so it needs a certain amount of understanding of the fundamentals and applying it. The same, I think, with sound, understanding some of these fundamental questions and clarifying it in a logical, rational way. So I understand actually what I'm doing, because this is, whatever we are doing in the practice of sound is completely validated by neuroscience. You know that, right? Because you work in the health field. So when we talk about the nervous system, the effect of exhalation on the nervous system, the vagus nerve, and how it's affected by breath and sound. So we know exactly why we are doing what we are doing. I think that is extremely important, that perspective on, because that helps me deepen my practice. Because if I really know exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing, that really helps me go a lot deeper.
That's a very beautiful part of the modern society then also. There is more research done, it's more integrated.
Yes, integration, I think, is the key word. That we really need to integrate everything that we are doing into one, because we do so many things for our health, with the body, with the mind, and so many other things that we do. But I think the key is really to integrate it, to bring it into one, so that I know whatever I'm doing with my body, how it's affecting my mind. Because the overall goal is health and well-being in yoga.
Yeah, that's what swastika means, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but it's beautiful, and I really like that Krishnamacharya was saying, teach what is appropriate for the individual, or for what is what fits now in these days and with these people. And I was thinking about what you were talking about today about the Surya Namaskar, because thinking about integration for me, well, now it's a little bit different. But if I think back when I started my practice of yoga, I was practicing Ashtanga yoga, and there was a lot of Surya Namaskars involved, and also in other styles of yoga, in the Vinyasa. Like, this is such a common sequence actually in the many yoga practices, and many people practice different forms maybe of Surya Namaskar. And I found it so interesting that you were. How did you talk about it today, and bringing mantra in Surya Namaskar, and especially also you said something about Surya Namaskar is not per se a prayer to the sun.
Yeah, a lot of people told me that after the class, that it's sort of a lot of pieces fell into place, and I understood why I'm doing what I'm doing. Because with the Surya Namaskar, it's, as I was saying earlier, it is really about bringing that connection. It's a big topic, so I don't want to talk for 45 minutes now on Surya Namaskar.
No.
But the intention that we bring, with the mantras, with the movement, with the breathing, so that it is something that completely integrates body, breath, mind, sound, and it is not restricted to that vinyasa. which is what I was trying to bring about by saying that yes, any vinyasa can be a Surya Namaskar. If you can bring in those mantras, we were saying the person in a wheelchair can do a Surya Namaskar.
In a wheelchair.
Yeah, because it's about bringing about that connection between what I understand is my consciousness, my awareness, my inner sun, light, and what I see outside as a representative of that same force, and connecting to something that is a little larger, a little bigger than me, which I think is also very beautiful in one way, because we are connected in more ways than one to everything around us. And it to use the sound with that intention really changes the practice in a certain way. So then it's not just simply about the movement alone, but it's a movement that is combined with my breath and my mind. So it becomes a completely integrated practice, which is really beautiful. And it's not restricted, as I was saying, to just that. If I cannot go into a plank, I cannot do a Surya Namaskar.
Yeah, exactly. So, and earlier you were also talking about kirtan, because I think a lot of people, they practice kirtan. Can you say something about it, like mantra and kirtan, or maybe also Vedic chanting, like these are different?
Yeah, again, there are, it's become different branches now, right? Either you do Vedic chanting, then you learn a lot of chants, and there are a lot of rules governing Vedic chanting, Varanam, Swaram, Matra, Balam, and on the other hand, you have Kirtan, which is the complete sort of opposite, which is just really expressive, really a lot of, yeah. So it's, again, as with everything, I think, as in yoga, in pranayama and meditation, we find the middle path. Also in sound, the way I look at mantras, I teach mantras, is somewhere in between. So a mantra can be uplifting because we use scales, we use music, we use sound. But a mantra can also be completely focusing, whitening. So it is learning what I need and learning to use it at a time that I need it. So it is not just about learning as many chants as I can, but it's about even learning one line and trying to make it go really deep.
Or one word, even.
One word.
Or one tone.
Just one word, one tone. We spoke about Ekatanam, using just one tone to bring the mind to steadiness.
So it's not per se better to make more words?
Not necessary at all. It's not necessary because it's, as with everything, it's not the quantity, it's the quality, isn't it? It's how deep I can bring that one word into my mind, where my mind becomes that mantra in that final state.
So, because in Vedic chanting, there is a lot of rules involved?
Yes, because traditionally the intention of Vedic chanting was a little different from what we understand as kirtan or chanting nowadays, right? And the intention, first of all, was to preserve that knowledge. It was an oral tradition, so they had to make sure that there was no distortion when it was passed on from one person to another. And if you look at the complexity of the Vedic chants, it does require a lot of personal discipline, right? If you really have to do Vedic chanting properly. And Krishnamacharya himself would say many times that it is not necessary or not possible for everyone to follow those kind of disciplines to do Vedic chanting, right? But in fact, again, there is a lot of confusion because a lot of people do a lot of chants. They think they are Vedic, but they're really not Vedic, which means you have a lot more freedom with it because the literature is vast in mantras and Sanskrit. There is so much there. So even the Yoga Sutras, for example, a lot of people think it is Vedic, right? But it's not per se a Vedic chant. So which means the Yoga Sutras can pretty much be chanted a little more freely, as long as you're pronouncing it reasonably okay. Whereas with the Vedic chant, yes, the rules governing it are very strict. And the intention behind that was also a little different at that point in time. So these are, again, different areas of learning. There is value in learning each of them. But again, it is important to put it into perspective as to why am I learning that? What am I getting out of it? How am I bringing that back into my daily life? How am I bringing that into affecting the way I deal with myself? I deal with different situations, deal with different people, because yoga has to be for me, as you were saying earlier, isn't it? When Krishnamacharya said who?
Yeah.
The first question, who is the student? Depending on the student, then the purpose and then the practice. So it is about understanding some of these fundamentals, I think, which then make it very clear, then you know.
So is it, can I say that in these days, people are working and have families and we're very busy these days. Is it necessary to practice Vedic chanting, or is it, there's no yes or no answer? Like maybe for some people it can be very useful, or do you think it's more
Sound
useful?
can be extremely useful, not necessarily Vedic chanting, that everyone must do Vedic chanting. No. But sound in some way, the mantra in some way, is extremely useful for everyone, I think, especially in today's world, because of so much of externalization, the external bombardments completely all the time going on, that we don't really find that inner space for ourselves. And a mantra is extremely useful to really find that inner space for myself, even if it is for 2 minutes every now and then. It helps put my life into perspective at the time. So I think use of sound, use of simple words, as I was saying earlier, it doesn't have to be in Sanskrit. Sometimes it's useful to have it a Sanskrit word because it doesn't have past samskaras that it carries with it. So it's something new that I create and use samskara. But it could be an affirmation that I use in my own language, right? As long as I know how to use it with my breath, how to bring about that right intention in my mind, because we were going through many ways of using it with the breath. I use it for stillness, I use it for focus, I use it for upliftment, I use it for expansion. So I think these are different ways of using a mantra which are useful pretty much for everyone in that sense.
And also, especially for women, tomorrow we will talk more about women in the program. Is there, like, could you say like one thing about what you see there's a benefit in mantra for especially women or men? Like, or do you think like we shouldn't make that?
I think the use of sound is equally useful or required for both. But as it is, we know it's mostly women in yoga, right? And I think in that sense, sound is a lot in a way, because I think we are more emotions in one sense. And also the use of sound is extremely useful at different points tomorrow when we talk about women's health, when the different physiological changes that we go through as women, whether it's menstruation or pregnancy or menopause, the different changes that we go through, and the sensitivity that we try and develop through our asana, pranayama, yoga practices towards our own bodies and minds. Sound is a tool that can help to get closer to that point, because the entire framework of yoga and Ayurveda are about understanding myself better, getting in touch with my body better, so I know what I need. Because I think in today's world, many people are very, very disconnected. So the first step is to get in touch with my body, to understand what it is I really need at this point for my body and mind. And then I have the tools and then I use them. So in that sense, I think sound is universal. I wouldn't say it is more or less useful, but I think especially because it is more women practicing yoga, it's a good idea also to look at mantras that could be useful at different points in time, in different situations, in different circumstances, and how I can use them.
I do see many women men than another. So that's also interesting, I think. I think the men are, for example, when I was practicing Ashtanga, there were more men. I see maybe because it's a little bit more strength practice, but Well, I feel like it would be nice if men would be inspired to practice this a little bit more, right?
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, because I really think it's like there is more, a little bit more maybe awareness to women's health because of there is so many women,
Yeah.
and also the women sometimes they do forget to think about their menstruation and the cycles, and it's really important to be connected with your nature,
Mhm.
I think, but also for men. I think it should be.
I think it's equally important.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same. Yoga, in one sense, is universal for men and women.
Mhm.
It's just that we, as you say, we're giving extra attention to yoga for women because it's mostly women practicing
But
yoga.
in the past, it was different, I think.
It was, I don't think it was very different.
I'm just thinking that,
Like-
like the names, Krishnamacharya was a man, your father was well, of course, your mother is a woman who was also practicing with Krishnamacharya, but like all the people that we know who were practicing, well, the Indra Devi, but there were some people who were practicing.
I know.
Yeah,
It's quite ironic sometimes. Most of the people practicing are women. Most of the famous teachers are men.
Yeah, it's interesting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's also changing.
Mm-hmm. Maybe it goes a little bit like this.
I think in the past as well, there were equally number of women practicing, as many as men. Maybe they didn't come to the forefront because they didn't choose to.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, maybe. No. But there are many references in a lot of the ancient yoga texts about women practicing yoga as much as pranayama, mantras, all of that.
Yeah. Yeah, your mother was talking about it too, the women sages, and yeah, that's I love you to listen to your mother if she's telling stories about this. Yeah.
Yes, everyone loves listening to my mother.
Yes, I know. It's always so nice to listen to your mother. But well, back to sound, and it's so nice to see that you're so passionate about this, and the way you share this, it's such a balanced way, and it's really so beautiful that there's more awareness to this, I think, and um, yeah, well, I think this maybe is a big question, but still, how, like, a lot of people, they maybe want to integrate sound as well, because I integrate it more and more in my practice. Actually, everything I teach, there's always sound, and every time I practice for myself, there's sound integrated. But how can people start? Like, if because what I hear sometimes in my classes, at some point they start a little bit, and then they dare to do it. It's for a lot of people, it's a little bit hard to use their voice, and then being at home and using a mantra in their practice, they just don't do it. They need to get over something to. Really...
Yes, I think that's extremely important as well, because when my voice is as much a part of me as is my face, my hands, my body. And when we're talking about accepting myself, being more compassionate, being more loving, being more kind to myself, it is also about not being so judgmental about my voice, which is something I hear all the time because I work with sound like a frog. In a sense, it's about understanding how to use my own voice as my tool, my friend, my companion. It's with me all the time, just as my breath is, right? And I think breaking that barrier of accepting my own voice is also a very important psychological perspective that each one brings to themselves, that I like the way I sound.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, yeah. I accept it. And I would suggest start with just very simple vowel sounds, like what we did at the beginning. Or simple sounds to just connect to my voice. And it's best to do it with the breath, just as we did. Maintain equanimity in the breath, learning to use the length of the breath with the length of the sound, allowing that the sound and the breath to deepen each other, so that feels like a positive cycle. Because whatever we do in yoga, if we must come back to it, it must be rewarding. If it's punishing, we will not come back to it. Yes. So that's the key with the sound as well. It's about learning. So initially, which is why when we do it here, I do it with you all the time, so that you're not thinking about listening to my own voice, but you're doing it with me. But eventually, and that's why I said when you do it at home, first do it along with the recording, do it but then eventually, yes, just learn to do it by yourself as well. But I think that's also a very important aspect of looking into how I relate to my own voice and how I accept it.
It's so beautiful then to learn that it's okay to use your voice, and once you start practicing that you can also make it more loud, you can make it more soft, and it has such relaxing qualities in there.
Yes, because music has that quality, sound has that quality. As I was saying, whether you sing well or you don't sing well, your body is still releasing all the good hormones when you're singing. The endorphins, the oxytocins, they're all being released with music when you listen, when you make, when you sing. Maybe you think that you don't sound good, but your body still thinks you sound good.
Well, that's nice. That's a nice
because
thought.
that's happening automatically in your nervous system. The minute I use sound, I'm exhaling. The minute I do a long exhale, that's telling my body, yes, this is nice for me. This is good for me.
Beautiful. So I'm just looking at the time. So you're teaching tomorrow one more day here, and then you're coming back to Europe, because now this time you were in Europe to teach these programs in different cities, and again you will be back next year.
Yes, for the part 2, because originally I envisioned it as a 5-day program, just like the yoga therapy modules. But then too many locations came up, so I thought instead of doing 5 at a stretch, we first do the introduction now, so that people have a foundation and they start working with it, and then we will do the part 2 next year, which is another 3 days.
Yeah, but that's so nice, because then we can integrate what we learned.
Yes, also, because you can do sound for a month. Yeah. You can do it for 10 days, 15 days. Yeah. You can do it for 2 months. So it depends on what depth you really want to go into. So we start with 5 days and then we see how it goes.
Yeah, beautiful. And I was thinking one more question, because you said that we started that you were your parents were teaching you. Did you also teach your sons to?
Yeah, I do. I teach them, because the chanting is something I also taught them from when they were very young.
Also when they were still in your belly?
Yes, I used to do a lot of singing then. But still, I think it still depends on each child, because it depends on, I think they relate to the sounds very well if you do it when you're pregnant, because they have found, right, that the baby recognizes certain music, or especially, of course, it recognizes the mother's voice that it hears. So if it's going to, yeah. So the sounds that they hear you making. And of course, with children, I think the best is to start as early as you can. How my parents started with me.
A very playful way.
Yeah. Teaching children, again, sound is so useful, because that's the best way to engage their breath. Right? You cannot tell an 8-year-old, oh, take a deep breath for 10 seconds. He's not going to do it. But if you have them sing, if you have them chant, if you do a nursery rhyme, if you make them do vowel sounds, animal sounds, the minute they do a long sound, they will breathe in. So, and it's very interesting. I've had many instances of, we'll keep it short, where I had done some children's classes many years ago in Singapore, and then there was a boy who was around 10 years old, and I had taught them a lot of singing, chanting with different vinyasas, asanas. And he used to go home, and after I had finished the class, and it was about a month or so later, and he asked his mother every night to do the chanting with him, just simple mantra. So, and he was very insistent, let's do it every day. So she said, oh, what happened suddenly? Why do you want to do this? And then he told her, but then he came out and he told her when he was on the bus, there was a boy who was being a little mean to him, who was bullying him a little bit, and he was using his mantra to stay calm. And that he did it naturally. His mother didn't really tell him that's how you should be using a mantra. Of course, she was my student for a few years. She used to chant with them and do it with them, but he did it by himself. He said, I think if I do that at that point, then I feel really calm and I can handle and I can talk to him properly.
Wow, but it's so nice, so natural, right?
Yeah, so children sometimes make that connection so naturally.
Yeah. I see that in my daughter. She's only 4.5, but she was walking in the yogic mindfulness with your parents last year. So then she was only 3 or 3, like 3 years. And I was not teaching, they were not teaching her, but she was just hearing it. And then we learned like a longer mantra, 4 lines. And she really knows how to pronounce it in Sanskrit mantra. It's so beautiful. Like it's so interesting to see that children really pick this up.
Yeah, because the deepest impressions are with sound. You know, and sound is one of the senses when they talk about the 5 senses. It is the one that is sannikarsham, that is closest. It is the one that can actually break all the vrittis, that can cause a pause in the vrittis, and it is one that attracts the mind the first with sound. So, which is why it is so powerful.
Yeah, there's also one of my example stories. I'm working in psychiatry, right? And I'm teaching clients in psychiatry. I teach them yoga, and well, there's many different ways and tools that you can use. And one time there was this woman, and she was a traumatized woman, and it was so hard for her to focus because she could only cry, and she had these thoughts, and she could not stop the negative thoughts. They couldn't stop, and this was a little group, so we tried different things, and I tried to talk to her, and people were comforting her, like how this goes then. And the only thing was like she couldn't, and she was like, "Please help me!" Like everything was a trigger. So and then I started to work with mantra with her, and this like immediately, this was so powerful. It was so powerful to see.
Yeah, there has been a lot of research also done on this, you know, that how sound sort of, because it is something that.
Like really
a certain frequency of sound that we automatically relate to because it connects with the evolution of the vagus nerve, because we express all our emotions through our face or through our voice. So automatically the connection between a calmer tone, between using a pitch, a sound, automatically sends that signal to the nervous system that I'm okay.
Yes.
And it cuts that.
And it felt like a distraction that she couldn't, like she was really trying to get distracted from these thoughts, but she couldn't think of anything.
Yeah, which is what we said, right? The minute we try to suppress something, sometimes the stronger it becomes. But when we can actually replace it very easily.
Exactly, this was
really I think that is exactly what happens.
Yeah, it's so beautiful, so very powerful. So let's see if there's maybe if there are people online who have a question. So if you do have a question, you could put it in the chat box. Oh, hello, Imbal from Israel, student of Iris, is there? She's saying, so if there are people, if people have a question, you can type it in and we will see it. But there's not so much time left because we were chatting already for so long. There are some ladies in the room here. Is there a question from your side? That was unexpected, huh? That was unexpected.
What is your favorite mantra?
Your favorite mantra?
That's a tough one. Because I have so many. Yeah, because I do. My mantras are also related a lot to my music. So it also has a lot to do with my daily practice and the daily chanting and the rituals that I also do with my pranayama asanas. So there are, I think, just too many of them. And I honestly like using different mantras also at different points in time, because I really find it engages the mind in many different ways when you use different mantras. It's very useful to be consistent with one, but it's also good to be consistent with many. So then you have a choice at times that you need to use different mantras for different sort of purposes. So I don't really have one exact mantra.
Well, Imbal, she's asking, can Nitya give some examples for using the voice with practice? But I think that's already, like, there were a lot of well, we spoke about this already a lot, but maybe in a very simple example.
Very simple example, use it in forward bends in asanas. By practice, I assume she means asana practice.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to use it in asanas, use it in, to start with, in forward bending movements. Use it in maybe mild twists.
Mm-hmm.
And start with simple vowel sounds, as I said, or simple words like Namaha, Shanti. Engage with the intention of the mantra on inhale, and chant the mantra aloud throughout the length of your exhale. Pace your breath to the length of the mantra. Have a little bit of pause at the end of the mantra, and then you inhale again. So you repeat that a few times in the asana practice, so that when you sit down for the pranayama practice, your mind and breath are already integrated with that mantra, and it becomes easier to internalize it from doing it aloud. Then you bring it internal, and then you move on to the meditation.
Beautiful. Yeah. So I hope this this gives you a bit of an idea, Inbal. Thanks. She says thanks. There is Jennifer with a last name that I really cannot pronounce. Hello, thank you for this. Will the training be available online? She's asking.
That is my intention, but unfortunately not right now. Yes.
Oh,
I will try and do. This is already online. Yeah, because I will first come back to Europe next year to do the part 2. And yes, I eventually do plan to do a little more and more work on sound. I want to do more work on sound as therapy as well, because here we're mainly starting off with general work, sound for sound health and well-being. But I would like to go more also into the area of exploring sound for therapy, for trauma, for looking at, depression, anxiety, looking at specific aspects that we can work with mantras and sound. That is something that I would like to do maybe after part 2.
Yeah.
And online, maybe, yes, I would definitely like to do some basic, at least mantras practice online that people can follow. To do for their own personal practice and teaching. Of course, if we have to do it in depth, I think it has to be in person, is a lot more fun. I've been thinking of it for a while.
Oh, thank you.
Hopefully soon.
Yeah, hopefully. So thank you for asking also, and I think we're getting close to an ending time actually. So is there anything that you feel like, because this was like a lot of subjects actually in an hour.
Sound is a huge subject, and as I said, I think it's very valuable for everyone, and I hope we've been able to cover maybe glimpses of it.
Yes, it's just like asana practice, meditation practice, like cover everything.
45 minutes.
Of course not, but I think it's really nice to have these kind of conversations and to get a little bit of an idea. People who are not practicing, maybe they get inspired to practice, or people who are practicing.
As you say, to break down the idea that, I can work with sound because I can't sing. That is something that I would really like people to rethink. You don't have to sing, you don't have to be a musician, you don't have to have a good voice. All you have to do is to really learn to use your breath and express.
And also, you don't have to have that teacher next to you all the time. If it's not available, then you can still do something.
Yeah, that's what we've been saying, that that it's important to use simple sounds, to bring it into your practice, to internalize it, to integrate it into everything that you do.
Especially these days where there's so much like stress. It's such a big issue these days. And well, of course, network yoga therapy is focusing a lot on healthcare and these communities. And like, I'm a nurse myself, but I'm working also in my team with doctors and psychologists. And I hear in the workspaces there's so much stress, and we are the people who need to help other people to feel better, right?
You need to take care of yourself first before you can help someone else. Yeah.
So this self-care and self-compassion and yogic tools are very important, I think, in the...
Yes, because they completely focus inwards. The intention of yoga set within that framework was internal, which is why it brings so much value, I think, to today. Because what we see as the physical practices of asana today, which has become so popular, were within a much larger framework of mind and body well-being, isn't it? So, which is why it has the potential to lead us to a better state of health and well-being. So that is what we're trying to bring back.
Exactly.
To integrate that into everything we do.
Oh, beautiful. So, and I think to wrap it up, I think it's good to say that you will be back next year to just to make it clear, to do the next part, but also for the conference, the yoga therapy conference. You'll be one of our special guests at the conference. And before the conference, we will create an online program. And this is what it's about. It's self-care and yogic tools for busy professionals. And professionals could be in healthcare, but also yoga teachers, like also in yoga communities. People are stressed, and there's a taboo, I think. Like a yoga teacher cannot be stressed. A yoga teacher should always be smiling and happy and compassionate and all this. So I think there's a lot of pressure on yoga teachers and yoga therapists as well. So I think this is a beautiful subject of self-care and yoga for all the professionals to dive in. And so this online program will be about that with you and some other people, and we're going to do this with network yoga therapy. So I'm really looking forward to create this new thing for us. This is also new, and it's exciting. Try to do the best we can.
Thank you for your good energy and enthusiasm.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your wonderful energy and everything that you share with us. So, well, can we be on? Would it be maybe, I don't know if I can ask you, because I didn't ask you before, could you maybe sing a little bit for the people who are watching? Is this okay?
Yeah, sure.
A little mantra?
We need my little device for it. Okay, it's just here, so I just put the drone on. So it will accompany me. So we just end with a tribute to sound, because that's what. Nadam Brahma Sada Advitiyam Upasmane Nadopasanaya Deva Brahma Vishnu Maheshwara Bhavanti Upasita Nulam Yasmadeti Tadatmika. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We say goodbye to the people. Thank you both so much. Namaste. Somebody saying, well, thank you for joining us. And well, I will keep you informed about the new things. And I wish you a very pleasant and relaxed evening or morning, wherever you are in the world. And when Pirjo is saying something, thank you, Nitya. Thank you so much. Oh, it's so sweet. So thank you all so much. And well, see you next time. Thank you. Bye, everybody.